jump into background about draft. Most of you already know about it, but just for some people who haven't heard of it before, and just so we have something to look at, I'll just share my screen. Draft was originally planned as a 2-day festival on text and technology. But soon it had to be adapted for the virtual world, which also allowed us to expand our scope to involving global creators and technologists and writers, which was actually a blessing in disguise for us. And we transformed into a community rather than a standalone festival idea. And now we are thinking of it also as a long-term research project to explore the future of text and staying true to the meaning of draft, which is always celebrating work in progress as a method and experiments. We intend for it to keep evolving along with the interests of the people who are a part of its community and growing trends in text and literature and changing technology with time. So we are not really keeping any boundaries for its identity as such, but it's just all about experimenting, collaborating, and creating new things. Um, just to give you guys a sense of what we've been up to before this, we started with a code poetry jam. We'll share all of the links with you guys also if you want to see later. We started with that code poetry jam, and we were surprised with the kind of with the way it was received by everyone, and we actually owe Hasgeek a lot for that sort of reception. And Zainab is here also from Hasgeek, and she has graciously agreed to be an advisor to draft. And these are some of the works that the community has been doing in meetups and hands-on workshops and smaller groups that we've been organizing. And then we've opened up Instagram, draft Instagram to the community to share their inspirations, their new projects, and whatever they've been working on in terms of text and technology with everyone who's a part of the larger community. And we call this Tuesday Takeover. We were doing it weekly for a very long time, where the entire day, one of the people would just spend sharing stuff on Instagram. These are some of the works that were featured. And then we ended up collaborating with the Global Electronic Literature Organization for their upcoming conference in May 2021. And Scott and Caitlin from the ELO team are also here. So in case anyone wants to interact with them also, they are around. We will be presenting an exhibition and creating some programming and around social and creative themes for the ELO conference. And since we are draft, we figured that the best way to curate the exhibition is actually to organize this sort of collaborative lab where we invite people from the community and then create something together, and which culminates into the final exhibition that will be showcased. I'll now hand it over to Agat, who can talk about the theme for the lab and the exhibition ultimately, and then open up for sharing the experiments that have been going on here at lab. Over to Agat.
Nanditi. I'm Agat. I'm a theatre maker. I'm based in Amsterdam and Jaipur. But I haven't gone back to Jaipur since COVID struck. So don't know when, but soon. So I think ELO had very interesting provocation for us in the theme that they decided for the exhibition, which was the idea of platform, and to explore the idea of platform as a space where ELIT takes place, which supports, which kind of creates ELIT and things like that. And we took off from there, and we tried to interrogate what does it mean to be a platform, what is a platform, and things like that. And it was really interesting that we figured out that it implies certain flatness. It implies certain kind of hanging around on the surface of things. And so we thought, how can we break into the platform? How can we get into the platform and do something beyond what the platform allows us to do? And we started thinking of strategies to do that. And and we um, and we came up with a few uh, ideas, and we thought that one of the things that we should definitely do is we took kind of a leap and said, okay, multilinguality is something that's really important because platforms generally prefer certain uh, language groups, and then so for us that became one of the pivots. And the other pivot uh, that was important for us, that things that really interrogate what platforms can do, which is where Tattle kind of came in as a critical eye at what platforms can do itself. Um, and we and the other thing that we decided was that in the spirit of what Nanti calls the draft spirit is that it has to be that the exhibition itself has to be uh, essentially a place for learning, a place of a place where experiments can happen. So not committing to sort of a um, very clean curatorial frame, but creating a place for possibilities, creating a place for exchange, and where new things can emerge. Uh, so we started doing these small experiments, which Anushka has been supporting. Uh, so we sit on every Saturday and we say, okay, what are we going to do today? Let's we've been interested in the idea of what is the idea of a text message now. So let's see what we can do with that. What can we do with the that all the Radia tapes are archived really well on the Padma archive. So what can we do with that? Can we make some poetry with that? And I have this. I made an old project around collaborative story writing. How can we make some kind of a generative version of the same project? So we've been sitting for a few Saturdays now, and trying to see what possibilities emerge from these interactions. And what's really special about these interactions is that it's really collaborative. That it's sort of it's the exchange of what's possible, where ideas come from. It's the flow of those things is multidimensional. It's really nice. That should be my small introduction to what we're trying to do. We also have a note around platform as a place of study, which we can circulate if somebody wants more information. I think I was now asked that according to Nanditi, I should now introduce Denny.
No, Anushka, right? She was supposed to give the demo first.
Okay, so Anushka, this is where you jump in. Anushka is a brilliant creative technologist. I can't say more about her.
That's not. Hello everybody. I'm Anushka. Just like a disclaimer, I haven't done this a lot, so I get really nervous just putting that out there. And just want to take like half a minute to say thanks to everybody, Ambika, Nanditi, Agat, for allowing me to think about all these things. And I don't think I would have taken the time to go in deep about text and how we're using text nowadays, what can be done with it if not for this lab. So with that, I'll just explain what we've been working with on, me and Agat, the first sort of idea that we had. Shall I share my screen? Okay. Yeah. So initially the thing that jumped at me was this image where text is not aligned in the way that we used to. So the motivation was, why do we have to read text in sort of horizontal lines, and why can it not flow more multidimensionally? And what would happen if that flow is guided by relationships of the between the words instead of any conventional tradition and so on? So I'm sorry,
Somebody need to mute themselves?
Zainab, I think that's you.
Zainab?
I could mute you for now.
Okay. Shall I call her or something?
It's okay. I could mute.
It only mutes for
Tanushree.
for you, doesn't mute for everybody else. I'll just call her 1 second. Zainab, you're not muted. Yeah, yeah. It's better now?
Okay, so so that was the basic idea of why do we have to read text in the form of lines, and why can it not be more multidimensional? So after seeing this, the first sort of idea that I had was to use Google autocomplete instead of as the sort of input data to the structure. And so why Google autocomplete really made sense to me was we start from the same thing and then we sort of flow in different directions. So the thing that you're typing sort of becomes your anchor point, and then what the autocomplete suggestions are is sort of how you can go from there. And this is so maybe that's what I sort of started experimenting with. And what I'm using here is D3, and it has a really cool layout, which is called force layout, which is exactly what we're sort of looking for, because it arranges things based on the forces that exist between them, which you can obviously define. So you basically define the relationship between the words that you have, and then you initialize some forces, and that's how words can sort of arrange themselves and then interact with each other as well. So from Padma, we were really interested. I think both of us were really interested in the Radia tapes, and so we decided to scrape all the conversations and use that as sort of the input to this structure. And then later on, we also realized that we could do the same with poems from Rekhta, which is like a platform for Hindi and Urdu poetry. So what I've made here is you basically give it some input, let's say love, and then it will do sort of like a coin toss, and then select either stuff from Padma, Radia or Rekhta. Is this not able to work? Okay. Yeah, so it's sort of taking these words from we either searching it on Rekhta, and the scraper that we're using was very generously made by Denny. Thank you, Denny. Couldn't have done it without that. So we're scraping the poem sort of from Rekhta, or we're using this term as a search in the Radia conversations, and that's how this sort of fills itself. Yeah, I think that's all for me. So if anybody has any questions, I can take those later. I should probably put this in the chat.
Do the lines between
Okay.
the words, what does that signify?
Sorry?
What does the line between the two words signify?
So that basically defines, like, if you have a greater force, then those words are going to be closer to each other and the line is going to be smaller.
Right. But does the line mean that in the original text these words were next to each other?
Yes, so thank you for, I completely skipped that part. So how we are forming the relations is basically connecting each word to the word that comes next to it in the same line or in the same line of the poem, for example, in Rekta. And then every word is connected to its corresponding word in the next line. So for now, that's how we're connecting these words, and the forces are based on how frequently these words occur in that sort of paragraph or that text. So if something is connected to a lot of things, then it's going to have greater force relationship with those other words. Okay, I'll just drop this in the chat. Thank you. That's all for me.
Yeah.
Very nice piece.
Thank you.
Now, why don't you jump in? Denny's
Oh,
very
yeah.
and he's a creative person, which is Denny's.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll share my screen. Let me see. Hi, so my name is Denny. I work for this project called Tattle. We are primarily trying to study misinformation on Indian social media. We started as a two people team, and then depending on the grant and the funding we get, we keep resizing and hiring more people or involving more open source contributors, and going scaling up and down. Primarily, we build tools and data sets to understand and respond to misinformation in India. Uh, Tools often mean like scrapers. So for example, social media that's is more popular in India. We might write custom scrapers to scrape data from that. And then one of the main goals of the project is to make that data available or make it open access for researchers and journalists or anybody who cares to study that data. So our core infrastructure consists of three things. One, like I said, is all these scrapers for Indian social media. I think this is a misnomer. What I mean by Indian social media is mainly social media that is relevant to the Indian context. So it could also mean platforms like WhatsApp, which are very big in India. But I think we also include platforms that primarily service the Indian user base. The data from all these scrapers is collected and stored in an archive, and then the goal is that this archive can be made available to researchers, journalists, fact checkers, whoever wants to work with it. Some of the challenges from the data that we collect, which is unique to the Indian or again, unique to the Indian context, is that the data is usually multimodal, which means less of text and more of images and videos. And even within those images and videos, it's a very multilingual data set. So the text that might be embedded in the image is usually in an Indian language. So the third part of our job is to actually be able to make sense of that data in a way that it can be made easy to analyze and query. So a lot of the algorithms and tools that we built on top of this archive are supposed to deal with multilingual and multimodal data. A lot of our primary output of our work exists in the form of software that we release on GitHub, but also a lot of research papers and news stories that come out of the work we do. I wanted to show the primary archive because I think that's more relevant to the work that Draft wanted to do. So right now in the archive, if anyone's actually able to sign up for this archive, and if you want to go here and sign up, the two main data sources you see is one of them is by our team. So it's a set of 2,200 annotated posts from an Indian social media called ShareChat. It consists of images, videos, and text posts that we received that we collected from these. I think they're primarily in Hindi language, and they are from the tags. The tags that they were posted under were, I think, related to politics, basically. So if you click on these, you kind of see the primary data, which is, let's say, this image, but then also, there's a lot of metadata associated with it, which could be useful for, someone like Draft who's trying to work with textual data to, let's say, generate images or like fetch images by, searching for some of these texts. This data set also has some annotations that were made by humans. So, so that kind of like makes it, I don't know, it's a much richer data set, and, you could probably write some tools to build on top of it. The second dataset featured on it right now is it was collected and released by a group of researchers from MIT and IIT Kharagpur, I think. They during the last Indian election, they scraped a lot of public WhatsApp groups, and they specifically chose this category called fear speech, which is different from hate speech, where where there might not be direct incitement to violence or anything in these messages, but the idea is that they're supposed to make you supposed to scare you and instill fear for a community, in this case the Muslims in India. What's good about this data set is that since they also did a lot of manual annotations, they have tags for which of these messages are actually classified as fear speech versus which of them are classified as normal. So in case someone wanted to query and filter either of those categories to select that as a subset to work on, I think they would be able to do that using this data set. You can, of course, log into the portal right now and go through the data manually like this, or also if you're interested in working on the data, I made some of a subset of this data available to the draft people on a Google Drive. So you should be able to just download the JSON and start playing around with it if you care for that. The third data set that is not actually visible here, but it's still part of our archive, is the data set of all text, images, and videos scraped from fact-checking websites in India. So I think we scraped 6 ISCM certified fact-checking websites. So a lot of the images, videos, and text that are part of those articles, we scrape and kind of try to make it available. Like I said in the past here, right? The good thing about the one thing that we are able to do because of this archive is that we're able to build tools on top of this data to kind of make sense of this data. So I wanted to demo a certain thing that we can do once we have this data set, which is that, so as you see here, this is the data of all the images that we collected from fact-checking articles. What this leads us to do is that we have the search tab where you can upload, let's say, a possibly an image that you received on, let's say, WhatsApp, right? So this is an image that was circulating on WhatsApp about how weed could cure coronavirus. And let's say if you wanted to run if this image or this post has been fact checked or not. So this is like a search engine that treats images as first class citizen, and the idea is that you can input an image into the search engine and it will send you articles that have been written using this image. So if you click on any of these, I think this is coming from 3 different, actually just 1 or 2 actually. Yeah, so if you notice, it's coming from 2 different fact-checking websites, but it's talking about the same post. So you can basically query for images and link it to a fact-checking article or anything. I guess just to iterate the point, basically for every post there is a metadata section, right? So whatever the post be, if the post could be an image, a text, or video, but you could associate metadata with that post, and that could let you build a higher abstraction of applications on top of it. Actually, yeah, that's all from my side.
Thanks, Denny. Denny's been very generous with his time for the draft collaborative work, and every time he talks about Tattle, I find something new, and it always makes me smile because he's really like delving in something very current. And at this point, I'll quickly before we like for everyone to just do a round of introductions of yourself, so that we aren't like trying to introduce others. But I'll just add that this group today is sort of fairly diverse. We have few people who are from technology and text related fields, including Srinivas J from Padma, who's also been very generous with his time for helping us access the API. We've got Aman. She's a culture management, project management, project and program management facilitator. You can please introduce yourself much better. We have got Jazer, who's one of our first participants of our first Copo Jam. In fact, Catherine, I don't know if she's still around. And of course, I'd like to first start off if Caitlin and Scott can just briefly introduce themselves and maybe a few words about ELO to just set a context for us within the space. and then maybe everyone can just do a quick round, post which you can either move towards Anushka and Agat and talk to them about their project, or towards Denny if you'd like to look at more collaborations, or if you just generally want to have conversations. There are many spaces outside where we can quite easily do that. Please, Scott and Caitlin, if you'd like to go ahead now.
You can go first, Scott.
Sure. I'm Scott Redberg. I'm a professor of digital culture at the University of Bergen in Norway. And I've been doing different kinds of electronic literature for about 20 years now. And I was the founder of the Electronic Literature Organization, one of the founders, although I'm no longer on the board of the organization. But I'm the current arts chair of the 2021 platform post-pandemic festival and conference. And we're doing 6 different exhibitions and a performance program. Both of these, of course, Draft is part of, and Draft has been helping us plan the conference, helping us to choose one of the keynotes. So we hope that you'll all be able to take part in that as well. And yeah, I wrote a book called Electronic Literature that was sort of an introduction to the kind of the genres and part of the history of the field. And it's really exciting. I'll just say it's very exciting for us that this connection has been made. And it's really kind of thrilling to see people beginning to explore in your part of the world with electronic literature. So we're just really overjoyed that you're going to be part of the festival this year.
Thanks, Scott. I'm Caitlin Fisher. I'm apologizing in advance for my avatar. When I entered this room, it said snap camera, so I can't turn off my filter at this point, but I'm not actually
pretty nice.
So I direct the Immersive Storytelling Lab and chair the Department of Cinema and Media Arts at York University in Toronto, Canada. I'm also the Vice President of the Electronic Literature Organization, and for the conference, I'm helping to coordinate some of the global events. As just echoing Scott, it's incredibly exciting for us to have, just thinking in terms of affordance as a platform, hosting events as part of our conference in Norway, on the west coast of the United States, and then also just amazing to be able to collaborate with your group here. I love the introduction that you provided. It's very, very exciting, and the focus on community building and pedagogy, and being able to leverage our conference to support that. I think that's really wonderful. So I love seeing the work here. I'm looking forward to finding out more as the conference date approaches, and to listening in on the kinds of amazing workshops it seems that you've begun.
I just want to thank Caitlin as well, because I've been sort of a bit overwhelmed with all of the different channels of information that are coming in, and all the different planning of the various events. So we asked Caitlin to be the global chair for the conference, and to help us to connect all these pieces together. So I think it's really great that we have a few different people making the connection with Draft. So.
Sorry, can I just list? Then maybe it'll be easier for people to just go one after the other quickly. I'll just put it in the chat, and please, Catherine, you can take the floor now.
I'm not sure if it's working.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine. I'm a student of media arts at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, but I'm originally from Hong Kong, which is where I am right now. And I do I'm interested in creative technology and kind of soft tech, poetic tech, and everything in that kind of area. And it's really exciting to be here. Draft has really helped me like get more into experimental literature. And I also have attended a few events at the ELO conference last year, or the last one that happened, and that was really fun as well. So thanks everyone.
Hi, Jay.
Hello, I'm Jan. I'm one of the people that developed and operate Padma, which has been used by you as a base for text mostly. Padma itself is a video platform, primarily as a media, as a video platform for different video material that allows you to write on the video and through that create deeply annotated and enriched materials and create new entry points into the material. So we are interested in kind of joining these, using the internet as a way to join visual material, moving images, but also and text in ways that kind of create new ways of looking and thinking about material. Not so sometimes, if you just have a video, it might not be. It might not open up all the layers that are in there, and through slowing it down and allowing this way of writing text to a specific frame, to time codes, you can have time spans. I think in the case of the Radia tapes, this is mostly transcribing it, but then we've also kind of turned the transcripts into videos again. They have been re-edited into films. They have been turned into theater plays. There have been exhibitions made with the material where you had a call-in system where you can call in and dial in with your phone, and you have a navigation where you can then also listen into the conversations. So trying to open up this material. So it's interesting to see how you now use also a platform like this for material, more like a textual analysis or looking at it more through text. So interesting to see how that plays out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think it's me now, the next person, right? So, hi, I'm Aman, and I work as program manager at Redberg in Delhi, which is the Swiss Arts Council operating for South Asia. We have an office in Delhi, and for a lot of countries in South Asia. We have been kind of not directly, but we've indirectly been working with Agile through some other partners, and we are kind of now trying to develop a focus on working on intersection of art, tech, and science. So this is just an introduction to the kind of work Agile does. So thank you, Ambika, for getting in touch and
Thank you.
to get an understanding, which is just the entrance to this entire conference room is like, I'm playing some video game and I'm failing.
No.
But great.
Yeah. We have to just we just have to get just just a fun way
Yeah.
to get
No,
get
it's
acquainted
fun.
with
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is me. Yeah. Hey, hi everyone. My name is Jason, and I'm based in New Delhi. And currently, I'm working as a UX designer with IBM. And so my basically my let's say I intersected with computational literature sometime around last year when I was working for my graduation projects. I was pursuing communication design from Pearl Academy in New Delhi, and that's where my graduation. I was working on my graduation project, which was basically I was looking at human and computer collaboration, and I was looking for a medium in which this sort of collaboration can take place, and that's when I started looking at text, and I started experimenting with it, and that's how I also somehow interacted with Ambika Draft. And So like Ambika mentioned, one of the first events that we had for draft, I presented that particular project, and that's me. And along with that, of course, creative coding has been very close to my heart since I don't know, like 10th grade, and art and design has also been there. So it's lovely that there is a place like draft where such intersections are taking place within the communities. Like, yeah, that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, I think I'm next. My name is Srinivas Kodali. I'm based in Hyderabad primarily. Uh, I, I, I work a lot around text, but visualization not so much lately, but I've been doing a lot before in the past. I've been playing with D3 and maps and D3 in different contexts. But I do work a lot on archiving, primarily text, because archiving newspapers, government records in Indian context. But I've also been like looking at various other data archives like judicial documents, first information reports. So I analyze data at large. I haven't been visualizing it, like not being building any tools around it yet. Uh, Also because of the sensitivity nature of these, some of the documents sometimes. But would love to show you some of them in future, and I'm happy to share some of these resources with you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm Anand. I think I'm the next one in the list. I work for the Fascinated Foundation. I'm not a creative artist, but I work in intersection of creative coding and technology. Like been exploring what's a good medium to teach programming to youngsters, and I find creative coding is a lot easier way to kind of connect. That's how I got in touch with Ambika. So I don't really most of the stuff that you're talking about are kind of quite new to me, but it's quite interesting to kind of see, and I would love to kind of spend more time and kind of get a sense of what the kind of stuff you're doing. I used to work with Internet Archive before, so used to kind of help the Internet Archive. Some of my code runs in the Internet Archive, so that's a bit about me.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
I
everybody.
know I've
I
been
know I've
told that
been
I've
told
put
that I've
everybody
put
on a spot by asking them to introduce themselves, but I just felt let it not be a webinar format where it's just show and tell. At this point, if you'd like to proceed with your Saturday, please, you're welcome to do so. But if you'd like to converse a bit more, the spaces are open for us to use as however long as we prefer. Or just an open conversation is as you prefer best.
I'm probably going to head off because I'm need to spend a little time with the kids on Saturday. But I wanted to say thanks so much for the tour of what you're doing, and it's really nice to meet more of the group. So I hope that we'll be seeing more of all of you during the draft events at the Yellow Conference, and also at the other events. We're going to try to time things so that some of the key events are accessible to all the different parts of the world that we're trying to bring together between from India to the West Coast of the States. So hopefully at least like the keynotes and key performances we'll be able to all experience together. So have a great day, and really nice to meet y'all.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for coming.
Bye, Scott.
Bye-bye.
So at this point, I have been reminded again that I forgot to explain why we've all gathered here, except for the presentations on the lab. We've all specifically requested you to join. It's a closed group to see where you'd like to sort of kind of consider yourselves as being part of the community and working on the lab. This could be as simple as telling us, hey, why don't you connect with that person, or it could be that, okay, you want to give maybe 1 or 2 weekends to help us in the capacity that you prefer, as a writer, as a development person. as a soundboard, as an advisor, however you prefer. So that is the real true call to action here. And specifically, I'm also just kind of opening out a bit to Catherine. Don't want to put you on a spot, but we would like for it to be a little bit larger in terms of it being, exposing us to what's happening a little bit more east of where we are. And you have given us a bit of a glimpse when you did the Tuesday takeover, but perhaps you'd like to do a collaboration of a similar kind, and we can even try and bring in an archive from around your region as well. So that's, I mean, I'm kind of leaving this open, but at this point we can kind of move around wherever we want. Thanks.
I just have a question for Srinivas, because I was just because all the data that you mentioned, it sounds very analog, right? Is it analog, and do you digitize it, or is it mostly just analog data? I think you're muted.
So we are in the process of doing OCR on newspapers, for example, right? Like,
right.
I mean, part of the archiving process is like we are trying to push them onto archive.org. And when you do that, if it's English, archive.org does its own translation. It does OCR,
Right.
sorry, not translation. So you have digitized text. Right. But in case of Indian languages, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to do that. Like, I work with this archivist called Karl Malamud, who has already been doing a lot of India-based work on archiving. And they've been trying to do some of the Indian languages where what they do is they use Google OCR, try to get the text, the digitized text, and then dump the text onto archive.org.
Right.
Right now, there is not much of inbuilt tools into archive.org to recognize Indian languages yet, but we're working towards it. But otherwise, when you look at some of the data, for example, there's FIR data that I'm looking at from Madhya Pradesh. It's in Hindi, and all of it's digitized, but downloading it, crawling it, it takes its own time. The sites are not designed for bulk downloading, right? So I'm at that phase of archiving stuff, but I'm happy to like talk more, like if you're looking for something specific.
Oh no, I was just curious because it sounded like you're working with kind of legacy infrastructure and.
No, it's a mix of both. It's transitioning there, right? So at the same time, so the thing is, I've been mapping out all the data that's been available in India. We have this other group called Data Meet. It's a mailing list where we hang around. I don't know if you know this, but you can just go to datameet.org, datameet.org.
Okay.
And there's it's a hang around for a lot of Indian data folks who look at different kinds of data, share it, and the people of all sides of that. So I've been mapping data in India, so I can help people if you're looking for any particular data, or you can just shoot a mail on Data Meet's mailing list.
Okay. Thank you.
Nobody's saying anything. Catherine, do you have something to say?
For all the archive experts on this call, I can't.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I have been working on a project about the history of cotton in India, but maybe after the 70s. And my whatever little research I did, I found like really conflicting ideas. Like on one side, you'd find information that how BT cotton has been marvelous for the farmers and the yields have increased and this and that. On the other side, you obviously find direct connections with farmer suicides and BT cotton. So is it possible to access, for example, are there social media networks that we could scrape based on location, that say that we say that the cotton farming belt is this, and are there discussions around this, and what are the discussions around this, and is there a way to probe this without, without really accessing then often the replies I get is that, why don't you go and talk to the farmer or farmers, and but you can only talk to, maybe I can only talk in my capacity with 10 people. But if there's this approach of scraping a lot of data that's floating around on social media in these areas, then maybe I get something more than that. Do you think that that's something that's possible? Or
if I may, so I also know friends at this project called Pari. You
Right.
Yeah.
Saina, right? Like
Yeah.
they do a lot of this kind of archiving at a village level, stories of farmers. I'm not sure if there is anything, but there would be better folks to help identify these resources. I'm happy to help you connect to them if you need. But yeah, just putting it out there. They have some of this data by themselves so far, and there are a few groups who are already collecting it. So.
Cool. Thanks. I'm aware of Pari, and it's a very inspiring project as well. It was actually one of the projects that we'd also considered for working with them as an archive for this exhibition as well. I think it'll be nice to connect with them. Denny, do you think that that one can scrape social media based on location? Like,
I think I think the short answer is yes, but I'm just wondering, like, the kind of data that you want, right? Like, would location be a factor, and like what kind of tags should one be looking for, right? And it really, because it depends, right? Like, are they posting about this online? Is the first question, right? I was thinking that sometimes, like, there are even like certain apps which are like very, let's say maybe there's an app which is geared towards disseminating information around cotton farming and stuff, right? Maybe though they have that data, from stories from farmers or something, but not that public social media that I know of where I've seen this kind of thing.
Caitlin has a question. If any of us work on fiction and poetry, I guess Jason and Catherine can talk about this. Jason's Blackout poetry was pretty cool in Copo Jam.
Yes, not to put anyone on the spot. I was just as part of the Electronic Literature Organization. One of the things we're really interested in, obviously, is the intersection between platforms and AI and co-creation with machines and the archiving work here, which is so foundational, and then also just seeing how that also supports different kinds of creative practices. So it was more just curious.
There is also another very interesting project that Agat has been exhibiting in Australia, and which is about basically interactive fiction over IVR phone calls. And he could tell us more about it. We helped him with it in terms of the production and technology used. So yeah, Agat and Jazer and Catherine, if you want to talk about any of the projects.
I have a project right now showing in an exhibition called Experimenter, which is an art science exhibition, and it's actually it's a really interesting one because it travels around Australia for 3 years. So it's really nice that a work is exhibited for such a long duration that it has the danger of becoming obsolete within the same exhibition. It's really nice. It's it's daunting. It's a work where you call a number and you can hear stories about microorganisms, and you can navigate through the stories by pressing different keys. It gives you options that if you want to, and sort of the world of the story is essentially a large archive of a writer, and you can bring out fragments from the archive and kind of build your own story in your own head, because the voice telephone is really interesting as a medium because it kind of takes place inside the head. The voice takes place inside the head. So it's very fascinating. Yeah, and but I know that some of the other people here also have been doing really interesting stuff. And Jaser's Blackout was also super interesting. Made a Blackout poetry generator. Jaser, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. So let me see if I can pull it on the screen. So this work, it's the same work that I was referring to as my graduation project work. So it essentially the inquiry started where I was looking at human and computers, and just thinking of this relationship, and what happens to this relationship when you put this lens of opposition on them. Like we see that things are in binary; they're complete opposites of each other. So in the case of human, which is like you're hypothesizing that human is this emotional being that's and that's in contrast with a computer who's quantifying things, and it's being it's very mechanical in nature. So what happens so firstly the idea was that, okay, like, there are things existing out there. They don't necessarily need to come together. So when do things need to come together? And it's often when they're part of a bigger system. So this system had to be defined in which these two organisms could exist. And that's when I started looking at Blackout poetry. And when these two organisms who are in opposition, they're trying to be there. So how do you resolve this opposition? What are the different ways of resolving this? And and an interesting insight to this whole this project was that there's this professor called Peter Elbow, and he works. I think he's an English professor who's also looking at how do you go about resolving when people have opposite opinions. So I started looking at what he's written for that. What happens? How do you resolve opposition? So I'll just share my screen. Uh, Okay, so I hope my screen's visible to you guys. So, yeah. So essentially, Peter Elbow wrote about 5 ways of resolving a dichotomy, as to say. So in this case, it's a human-computer dichotomy. How do you go about resolving? So these are the ways of resolving. They're all translated as what this interaction would look like, and what the outcome of this interaction would look like. So these are all those modes. So first is just like the human performing the Blackout poetry. You're selecting words that somehow make sense to you according to the rules of language that you've learned, uh, and grammar that you work with. So you select some words, you see what makes sense, and essentially you have a piece of Blackout poetry with you. And the second one is called antithesis. So this is where only the computer is selecting words, and it's doing this on the basis of so I took large pieces of poetry from different poets. So I think Edgar Allan Poe was one of the most prevalent pieces of corpus that I had used to analyze basically grammar sequences. So what are the grammar sequences in a single piece of sentence that they're using? And essentially computer is taking a pick out of all those grammar sequences. Let's say we have 4, so it takes a pick out of 1, analyzes this text, and gives a go at it. And then you have something here which says, we started a house, he had the freedom. And so this was interesting because here the human is the observer ultimately. Now you get to see what the computer is trying to do, what it's trying to say, how it's doing this. And out of these modes, I think visual one, when Anushka was talking about the project, visual is something that reminded of me, so I'll just get there. But essentially when we're talking about collaboration, right, and two opposites. So this is like when you're in a debate and people have two sides to an argument. So essentially you say, okay, one side is correct. So this is what human is about. Only human is correct. Second is, okay, only the computer is correct. And synthesis is something where you say, okay, neither of these are correct. There's a third point of view that's correct. And this is what this particular mode is translating, where essentially you're selecting a word and then the computer is selecting a word. So this is sort of a ping pong that you're playing with the computer. And and this is based on a sequence. This is based on a model called ngram. So essentially it's similar to so what's happening behind the scenes is here that you select a word, let's say the, so the computer goes back to a piece of text that it has as a reference. It says, okay, after the, what is most likely to follow, uh, and then it goes ahead and if it has 4 options to select, then it'll toss a coin and select one. And this is where essentially this mode is there are more intricacies into it, which I can get into later probably. Then there's this mode where essentially this is similar to the third mode, but it's more suggestive in nature. So this is like a both hand approach. So the human and computer is collaborating together, but it's more suggestive. So if I select the, then the computer is now suggesting those words for me, and I don't necessarily need to go with the word that computer has selected. So I can pick something else, and you can end up with a poem. And the final mode is a visual one. So in a debate, often one way to resolve the debate, or let's say to kill the debate, is to say that both the parties are incorrect, and there's a whole new fresh perspective that's actually the objective truth. And that's what the last mode is talking about. So essentially this had to be an alien entity to human and computer. And what I thought that this alien entity can be is, in all of these modes, human is also trying to work under the rules of grammar, but the computer and the computer is also working under the rules of grammar. But what happens when you feed a visual rule, what is the outcome that you get there? So in this case, as you can see, it's a sine wave. So I plotted a sine wave, and then all the words that were overlapping with that wave. So that's the word that you get, that's the poem that you get. And essentially this sine wave also changes. It's a sine wave, sometimes it's a cos wave, sometimes the amplitude is different, and you can get variations of that pieces of text. And this becomes visual poetry in a sense. It may not make sense, sometimes it might make sense more than all the other modes, but this is what the project was about. I can share the link with you guys to explore. And to know more about this context of why this is what got me here, this is a very short document that you guys can read, and it basically talks about this whole aspect of what happens when there's a conflict, how do you go about resolving. And yeah, this is the project. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
We were just wondering if it's possible to create a blackout poetry tool based on Hindi or Urdu poetry rules, like pick up any specific type of poetry, and then will it be very complicated?
No. So essentially it all comes back to the corpus that you're analyzing text with.
Yeah.
How do I stop sharing screen? Okay, yeah. So essentially it all falls back to the corpus that you're using. The corpus that you're using essentially renders the outcome. So if we have a Hindi corpus, and the trick with that would be to see how you can take that corpus and tag it under the rules of Hindi grammar, which is where it gets really complex. So that's the funny thing. Like it's on you how much sense you want it to make, what rules you want it to follow. If it's, let's say, the Hindi poem has to be a visual language, right? Then it's not bounded by those grammar rules. Then you can literally have people drawing things and words are being selected on that. But if you want to work with grammar, then that's where it get complex and fun.
Thank you. So, I mean, we've kind of crossed our 1 hour mark. If someone wants to hang out, you're most welcome to. I'm shutting the stream.